Start the Zoom. Is this, oh. I know that probably didn't make any sense, but those of you who are watching live on YouTube, that was just me trying to set up the titles for the episode. But I think we're ready to go now, so let's go ahead and start this up. And hi, it's been quite a bit, so let's catch you up. Hi everybody, I'm sorry I've been gone so long. Let's start a corner. Holy cow, we are doing this. We are happening. It's happening. Wow. Hi. Good to have you with us. If you remember me, my name is Dave Medina. I'm still known as Dave E's Eating a Sandwich on all the social media platforms, which now is minus TikTok because they said they were going to take it away and ban it, and then they didn't. Well, they did for like a day, but I had enough at that point. So no more TikTok for your boy with the sandwiches. It's 2025. Hi. We have not talked to you here on this podcast since late August, and so for that, I would not only would I say I'm sorry, but it's kind of crazy. I wasn't really ready for that. But anyway, this is the Sandwich Corner. It's so nice to have you here. This is our podcast, which we do between each of our sandwich shows on Twitch. And over the last 15 years, we've done this program, 15 plus years. We're into year number 16 now of this podcast, which began faithfully in December of 2008 as Dave in the City Out West. And we've kept it going for a very, very long time. But this hiatus is definitely the longest we've ever had. It is a total of, well, if with this, I think it's going to make it, that's 4 plus 2, 7 months. Damn. I'm so sorry. Like, it's fun to be, it can be easy to get swept away in the excitement of doing things on Twitch. And I've realized that just in general, I've been busier than I used to be. And so with that, I've decided after a little bit of thought, I mean, that we're gonna start our run to the finish line on this long running podcast. And it's tough to get the words out because we've been doing DITCOW and the corner for such a long time. And ultimately one morphed into the other, but the conversations have really been a lot of the same. And it's been really good to get to know our buddies over the years. We've had so many people on, everybody from our friend Kevin on the Cape to John in Connecticut, Andy in Seattle. We've had our friend Mike in North Jersey. We've had our friends. We've had. I mentioned Andy in Seattle. I think I also mentioned Chris in Georgia, and we've had people like Umer on before. We've had our friends Rollins Calls for Life, Parcells Falling Out. We've had Cap and Fiddle, of course. We've had a lot of people on this podcast, and so it's really been a great run. And I just feel bad that I haven't been able to keep up with it with all the stuff we do on Twitch now. And I just feel like things I could have been doing on this podcast, I wound up doing on Twitch anyway. And it's just it's kind of nice to have this platform, but I feel like it's tough to basically do 3 jobs. So my regular full-time job as an IT administrator, and then my job as a content creator doing the sandwich show on Twitch. And then this is my passion too. It's been chatting about nonsense like golf and Oscars and wrestling and stuff like that. So so with that, I'm going to institute the Farewell for an Hour tour, which I know farewell tours get roundly criticized, as they should be. But basically, it's just a long way of me saying that I'm going to just do a few. We're going to do a few more of these podcasts together with people who've been here forever. And we'll call it a wrap around of the Final Four this year for who knows how long. I mean, I'm not saying it's forever, but I feel like we've all gotten busier. I know I can't speak for everybody. I know John and Andy and Mike have certainly had very exciting lives and things. And so likewise with Kevin, he's got a whole family now. And so and Tommy has a whole family. Everybody's kind of being adults. I think it's time. Maybe I should be an adult too. So it might be good to just kind of take a break from this for a little bit, but not yet. We're going to do some shows. We're going to have some fun. We're going to chat about golf and other stuff, and it should be a good time. And 2 of our guests have already joined us for the program. It's going to be good to go. We'll be good to go. So thank you again. And thank you just to say, thank you so much for supporting this podcast for almost 2 decades. That's just kind of nuts to think about. And I do want us to go out with a bang for a while. And I'm not going to be stupid like Mike, and I'm going to say, this is the end. This is it. We'll never do another show again. That's not going to happen. We might come back. I might come back in a little bit. So we're never is never. And who knows? Maybe we'll even extend this run. I don't know. But for now, we're going to say we're going to be going till April. And then we'll see. And we'll see. We'll say our goodbyes for the time being. So, all right, enough of that. I've talked too much already. Now let's go bring in our guests to the program. We're going to start by introducing our good pal. Always the savant of golf. Although, I think Mike, I know you've been kind of had an exciting few years or so. Even I'm not sure if you've been able to keep up with the golf, but it's good to have you back, Mike. Welcome in. How's it going?
Dave, it's good to be here. It's been a while, as you've alluded to,
Oh, yeah.
and I was able to catch think what 95% of your monologue here. And yeah, you hit on a lot of good points. It's just that time has flown by. I know you've been doing this show for almost 2 decades, like you alluded to.
Yeah.
John, Andy, and I have been joining you for golf shows now for 14 years, which is
Wild.
just,
That's
I
wild.
mean, we were kids basically when we started.
Hmm.
And listen, the older I get, the more it really hits me that nothing is static in this life. You know, everything's moving, everything's changing.
Hmm.
We adapt, we don't adapt. One day, John Mellencamp's writing songs about vacationing at the Gulf of Mexico. The next day, there is no more Gulf of Mexico because it's the Gulf of America now. So yeah, listen, I've had a lot of fun doing this over the years. You've been a great and gracious host, so I'm very happy that you decided that if we're going to do a farewell tour, that myself, John, Andy should be part of it. And Dave, let's hope that if you do decide to come back and there's a version 2.0 of this, that we give a little bit better of an effort than Mike Francesa did on
Right.
his run at WFAN.
Yeah, yeah, that was rough. I remember that
Yeah,
very
he,
well.
he he had such he went out and on such a high note. He comes back, just clearly didn't prepare for one show, and then loses in the ratings to Michael Kay. And now he's doing podcasts on the Bet Rivers Network, which every once in a while he has a good monologue, but he's got his son selling ice up at door rooms in Fairfield, so maybe he should have been focused on other things.
Absolutely. I know it, Mike. It's how the mighty have fallen. And meanwhile, we forget about Dog in the middle of this. Is like he just exploded on ESPN. Like he's all over TV now. Like it's amazing. Like how quickly life can change, Mike. It's amazing stuff. So let me also say hello to our good friend who's been with us for the meat of the last year, or the previous year. And the last show we did here on this podcast was the college football preview. This tells you how long we've been off. Like the Dodgers won a World Series, the Lakers traded for Luka Doncic, and then I'm not even going to talk about what happened in the rest of the world. Like it's, but Mike, but John, it is lovely to have you. The Chiefs did not win a championship, which I'm rather surprised at because the refs were trying to hand it to them, but it happened, and the Eagles give it to them. They won the Super Bowl, so that's all you missed, like the entire world of sports for like half a year. John, it's so wonderful to have you back. How's it going tonight? Good to have you back on the program with us.
Come on, Dave. Yeah, hope everyone's doing well. Hope you're doing well. I know, being out in LA, that had to be a very scary situation for you.
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah.
hope everything is good there. And yeah, I cannot believe the last time we talked was college football. And I bet if you pulled up that episode, our picks were incredibly wrong. So, um, I think we had some bad ones. But yeah, to echo Mike's sentiments, I mean, where does the time go? For sure. Like
Yeah.
I remember doing this like when Tiger Woods still had a chance at winning majors, and like we were ranting and raving on like after every major when he couldn't finish the deal, and yeah, and for all the football shows, and I agree that if you come back, Dave, just don't charge $5.99 for an app because
No, definitely.
very well.
No.
But yeah,
I
hey,
wouldn't. Yeah, I love that
yeah,
point.
and if you wanted to pop up here and there for something here and there, sure, but don't try to make like a sustained comeback and charge for an app and just don't put your research in and
Yeah.
end up on the Bet Rivers network. You wouldn't want.
No, absolutely. I know it's kind of eerie how many parallels there are to Mike here with this podcast. Like it's just like we've covered the arc of Mike's career. I remember the podcast we did when Mike like did his last show, Mike Francesa. For those of you, because there might be people listening to the show who have not actually remember the DITCOW era of this podcast, so I have to explain some of this stuff. Like Mike Francesa was probably one of the biggest talk show hosts in the history of the medium. They essentially invented sports talk radio with Christopher Mad Dog Russo doing the Mike and the Mad Dog show for many, 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 many years on WFAN. It was really the world leader in sports talk for a long time. But times have changed, of course, and they retired from that gig, and then they moved on to other things. But yeah, it's been fun. Honestly, this has been a lot of fun. And I've said this before, and let me get everybody on screen before I get into this, but I have said before that do I have that? Are you in the right positions though? Let me go. Okay, I got some work to do here. That's okay. I'll figure it out. But what the hell happened? Why aren't you on the screen? Like what? Okay, I'll figure it out in a second, folks. I'm sorry about it, but sorry everybody. Like, okay, I got it. I think I got it. I just have to switch this over. No sweat. Is that it? There we go. Got mic up. There we go. But anyway, what I was saying is that, and there's John, and so I got John up, and there's Mike. I messed up the name positions. Oh, that's fine. I'll fix that. But anyway, all I was gonna say is that, we really did cover a lot of ground. Like it's been it's been sublime. Like getting to cover like the biggest stories in sports. Like we've really gotten into a lot of stuff. I mean, we've covered like golf going to Live, and then the merger of Live that didn't happen, the PGA that didn't happen. Like it's been a nutso last 5 years of sports, but it's been fun, like, and you all made it fun, and you both are so knowledgeable about the sport of golf, and similar really with football in your case, John. Like it's really great, and Mike, and obviously you've got really great things with hockey. I don't even know, Mike, have you been watching the Four Nations face-off tournament scenario? Like, have you had time? Have you figured it out?
I have been, Dave. I've been quite tuned into it. So,
Nice.
yeah, just another striking example of the incompetence of Gary Bettman. I mean, look how much buzz that this tournament's gotten. Now, listen, some of it's because of we don't need to get into the politics behind it. Some of it is behind that. When you have the president of the United States threatening to invade and annex Canada, it sort of adds to the juice in an international competition. But putting that aside, though, just getting to see true best on best competition again in hockey, and just what an elevated level it gets to. Which just, if you were doing something like this every 2 years, I think you could spark some greater interest in the game. But they're apparently more interested in expanding the league now to New Orleans, Louisiana, which should be a brilliant. It's almost like they're going to just expand so much that the KHL eventually will be better, because there'll be 55 NHL teams, and there'll be 18 in the KHL, and then the KHL's, I forget my diatribe aside there. But yes, I have been watching the Four Nations. I guess we'll get into it a little bit more later, because we do have I don't know if they're calling it the championship game tomorrow, Canada, United States. So that should be a great one.
Yeah, good juice for that. I mean, it's a really exciting scenario. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I've thought about, like, who do I don't want to know. No, I'm not going to get into that tonight. I'm not going to get into politics tonight. But I was like, but it's going to be a great game, right? What I was going to say is, this reminds me the most of the Olympics about 2010, when it was in Vancouver, whatever that year was. Like, the juice for that tournament that year was amazing. It does have a similar kind of juice. Like, you got like really great talent on all these teams. Like Sweden and Finland were no pushovers either. So it was really a lot of fun. Like, right, this is awesome. It's like kind of a better version of the in-season tournament, although this is kind of different because they're not using actual NHL teams in this scenario. But yeah, you're right. Like, the Discord's been buzzing about it. It's been really fun. So yeah, John, have you seen any of the Four Nations tournament yourself? Like,
No, I haven't watched it. I mean, I've seen like the buzz about it on social media, but I will try to watch the final
okay,
tomorrow
yeah.
night. That'll be fun. But I wanted to ask you guys, have you watched the TGL, and what are your thoughts on that? I don't know if that was going to be a topic of conversation tonight.
Yeah, no, definitely. Actually, that's a good segue. I know that there's been ESPN's really been behind it. I haven't seen any of it yet. I'm actually kind of curious. Hopefully I'll find time for it at some point. But oh, go ahead.
I was going to just say, my quick thoughts are that it's better than I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
You need to have some competitive matches for sure, because when it's a blow, like with, some team wins the first 6 holes, it's like pointless after that. But they had a triple header yesterday, and all the matches were competitive, and it was pretty exciting, I have to say. So I don't know, like, what exactly the model is with this going forward. If I think there's like owners of the teams, like that's why they're named after cities. Like Arthur Blank owns Atlanta, for example, the Atlanta team. I feel like they could get some better players in there. Like, why is Kevin Kisner on one of these teams? Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me. He's not even barely a professional golfer at this point. Like if they could bring back some of the live players for this, I think it'd be even better. But I think for like, fill-in programming on the, winter nights, like I think it's fine.
Mhm.
But I'd be interested to hear if Mike has watched it and what your kind of overall thoughts are about it.
Yeah, Mike, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
I've watched a little bit. I was tuned into the Presidency Day games, but I was sort of, it was on one screen and I was half paying attention. I did want to see the first match just to check out the technology they had with the simulator building and whatnot. And of course, a theme that we always return to over the years on the golf show was making excuses for Tiger Woods. Well, after his first match, I forget which pundit it was on Golf Channel was saying, well, no, clearly there was an issue with the simulator, why he was coming up like 20 yards long on his iron shots. It's like, then why wasn't it happening to anyone else? When something about the way the ball spins when he hits it, it screws up the sim. So it's just the more things change, the more they stay the same. So I have to admit, after watching the first couple, I wasn't sure how much more I would end up watching it. But if it's on, like they pick good times to put it on. Monday, Tuesday night, you have NHL, you have NBA, you have college basketball, but with my multi-screen setup I normally am able to find some time to at least have it on. Now, here's what I think are a couple issues with it. Well, a few. John alluded to one, which is that if a team gets on a run early, it's over immediately, and all right, you're just watching them, have a glorified practice. The second thing is, what does it build to? What's the anticipation? These are all guys who have separate careers where we judge their achievements, their glory, their letdowns, their heartbreak by what happens in like actual golf tournaments. And this is, yeah, they're competing, but at the end of the day, who cares? Might get some drama in terms of who's going to win a particular match, who's going to win a hole. But in terms of building up to a championship, I think it's hard to do when you know that this is like their side project.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess the third thing with it is that, and maybe this is me just being tuned out. I feel like when I was a kid, if I tuned into something like the skin, because the silly season used to be a bigger deal when golf wasn't on television as much as it is now, where every round is televised, where they had the skins game, where they had like the team competitions, like usually at the beginning of winter, late fall. I felt like I could quickly grasp what was going on with that. I'm still a little bit confused as to how this hammer system works, how it's all right, we're doing alternate shot followed by individual matches, but we like alternate the holes on which players are playing. So as someone who follows golf closely, I feel like it should be a little bit easier to jump in and immediately, okay, I know what's going on here. And I understand the leverage with each shot. And listen, maybe that's me. A big part of it probably is that, I got too much going on. But I do feel like they could maybe streamline that a little bit better, make it more user friendly.
No, I think that's well said. Yeah, I know there's a lot to learn about a league like this. As we get into more TGL, let's go say hello to our third panelist tonight. It's Andy. It's been a minute. Andy in Seattle joining us. How's it going, my friend?
Doing well. Can you all hear me with the earbuds?
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, cool. Yeah, great to be on. Great to see everybody. If you guys are talking TGL, yeah, I watched all 3 matches on Monday before losing my ass at the slots. I couldn't resist all the gambling, but yeah, I didn't hear John's point about it, but I got on when Mike was talking about it. It definitely has a skins game feel to it. I was a little shaky when I first tuned in about a month ago, but I bought in rather quickly. I mean, there are some warts. There are some warts that they need to kind of fix. To Mike's point, like we're not judging Ricky Fowler's career because he represents Team New York, and him, Matt Fitzpatrick, and Cam Young are got a ton of synergy going. No, that's not the case. they're kind of winging it as they go along. Billy Horschel needs to shut the fuck up. He mugs for the camera way. He makes it so obvious. I mean, I guess if you'd rather have a Glover Glover on Monday looked like he wanted to be anywhere but there, or Billy Horschel, you take the Billy Horschel, but he just never shuts up. But I do love the concept of it, and it fills in some dead time. They're gonna have to work out some of the kinks, like I said, but it's gambling inventory. I guess John mentioned if a match gets out of hand, then there's not as much drama. But if you're betting on that team, you don't really want the drama. But if it's not like the match continues. It's not like if Tiger Woods goes up, he can win a match 5-3. If this is a TGL match, you're still playing for points. So they got to kind of tweak out the system, and the hammer, the hammer, I think in concept is good, but they also need to figure out, like, from a dramatic standpoint, how to use the hammer to maximize drama, because there's been a few instances on Monday, especially where a team neglected to partake in the hammer. So that's 2 shots that you don't see on like a drivable par 4. Mm-hmm. Which would be a lot more fun if the hammer was accepted. But I'm all in. And I guess if they had real courses, that'd be a lot more fun too. But there might be some propriety and copyright situations involved that prevents them from playing like these virtual setups of real courses. But it's seriously like it's chapter 1 of the business, so we'll see. They got a long ways to go.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting that to see you've all kind of warmed up to it, which is a good sign, I think, for being the savants, for being the fans of golf that you are. It's good to know. Like, it's good to see that it's good content, especially for this time of year. And going with an indoor league makes a lot of sense, obviously, with the weather being crazy in most of the country right now. Like, there's storms, there's lots of snow coming for a lot of the country, so it's kind of neat to have that to fill the gaps for the time being. John, anything else you wanted to add as far as the new league?
No, I think we covered it pretty well. I guess my question would be, like, how well are they getting paid by these quote unquote owners? Because like Ludwig Edberg wins a huge tournament on Sunday, gets a $4 million check, and there he is flying in overnight to Florida to play in this indoor simulation golf league. So what is the Bay owner? I don't know who it is, but there's an owner of the team. Like, what are these guys getting paid to participate in this? Like, that's a question that I'm interested in knowing, but maybe it's out there somewhere. But it's got to be something good, because any other tournament, like Ludwig is like withdrawn from the next day.
Oh, weird. Interesting. Yeah. Well, I guess so. Just like with any new league, there are always things to be sorting out, right? So we'll see how that goes. Speaking of new things, I mean, we had the new college 12-team playoff this year in college football. I think for the most part it's a win, but what's been strange is that everybody who had a bye lost in their game. And I'm wondering, is that bye more of a negative than a positive for the playoff? I think let's just stay with John for this, because John, we have been anticipating the 12-team playoff for a very long time, and I'm glad it's here. I think it ultimately ended up with a better playoff overall, especially because you ended up with teams in the final, the championship game, that would not have made it under the previous systems. So I think in the end, it was a really big win, but the game-to-game content wasn't great. So I was kind of interested to see your thoughts on how the playoff worked out for this season.
Yeah, no, I thought it was great, like, just for the drama towards the end of the season. Mm-hmm. And then the playoff games themselves, although the first round was pretty dull, I guess that shows you the home field advantage in college football, because the home teams just destroyed in that first round. And then, I think there's a problem with bracket too, the way they had it set up, in that, they had the conference champions get the buys, where maybe that wasn't the best thing to do. Like Arizona State, I mean, they put up a great game against Texas. Don't get me wrong, but maybe they shouldn't have had a bye. Same with Boise State, and that just made so the bracket. Penn State had to play SMU and then Boise State in order to get to the semifinals, and you could argue like that was the best spot to be in. Versus Oregon had the 1 seed, and then they ended up playing Ohio State in the second round, which probably shouldn't have happened. So they need to tweak the seeding a little bit and how that works out. I completely disagree with what they're trying to come up with now, which is 4 automatic bids for the SEC and the Big Ten. That's such bullshit. Like, just let it play out on the field. Like, I'm completely against that, proposal. But we'll see what that happens in the offseason. But I think as a whole, the playoff was a great success. I just think there needs to be some little tweaks with the seeding, moving forward, so that doesn't happen where it's like, yeah, you'd rather be the 5 seed than the 1 seed. Like, well, that just not happen. So
yeah.
Overall, I think it was definitely a success.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I think it's a much fairer system for me. It's a big improvement over 4, definitely. Let's go over to Andy. Let's get your thoughts on year 1 of the expanded playoff.
Yeah, my takeaways on that, which feels like it's been such a long time ago. I liked it. I really thought the fact that we could still do a bowl mania, John has his bowl mania, which was important. So I wouldn't say it seamlessly, but they try their best to retain the core of the bowls, which is very important, while they're interjecting with the home court or home field situation like they do in, like when Villanova, Montana, and the subdivisions, home field should count. And it obviously did this go around. If you want to say the teams that had the buys got rusty, or if it was a fluke, I don't know. You're going to kind of have to measure that out maybe in a 3 to 5 year case study rather than just this 1 year, but who knows? Like Oregon by and large was the best team from the beginning of September, late August through Thanksgiving weekend, coinciding, accumulating with the Big Ten championship. Now you had people on that Saturday when Oregon was playing that Big Ten title game, be like, if Dan Lanning had any long-term point of view, he wouldn't try. But you got people like Steve Spurrier and others that are like, and Lane Kiffin, for example, like, why would you even want to try to win the SEC if it's gonna potentially plague you in the playoff? But these competitive coaches, and you want to win, you want to have the hardware, you want to have these conference championships associated with your legacy or whatever. But and then case in point, Oregon loses to the hot lead, which is Ohio State. So there are some things. Again, everything has warts. So and now with sports, where everything is it's digested like instantaneously. Do you all remember when we all wanted Ryan Day fired because they lost to Michigan? Right? So
I'm guilty.
But yeah, me too. Because Ohio, for the longest time, Ryan Day would always, shrivel up in the big spot. But they ended up, winning it all. So now, like overnight, Ryan Day's perception is completely changed. The one common denominator that we can all get behind is we can always count on James Franklin showing up small. James Franklin will be the bully. He'll always be the bully. But when it's on an even field or he's a slight underdog, stay away or bet or fade James Franklin. Gosh, that guy is a putz.
Absolutely. Well said, Andy. We have some people watching us in the chat. I didn't even put the link up in the Discord, so thank you so much for joining in. Our buddy Sports Pope the master of the YouTubes way back in the day, is part of the chat. So it's good to see you, Chris in Georgia. Nice, aka Sports Pope. Welcome in. And by the way, Chris, I do want to get you on the program too before it's all said and done in April. So let me know if we can do it. Like, message me. We'll do like an NBA spot or something for sure. But now let's go back to let's go. So we had John and we had Andy's thoughts. Let's go to Mike. What did you think of the expanded playoff?
Well, as a Notre Dame fan, I had some skin in the game this year.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah. It was I'll start from that perspective first. It was quite exciting. Just to see, because I actually went and saw them play in person this year once, the Army game at Yankee Stadium, which they completely dominated. And trying to get into that stadium, though, was interesting. I basically had to cut like a line that went 3/4 of a mile, and I was able to get in for the start of it. And it was weird because they like didn't hire enough security to work a non-baseball event at Yankee Stadium. So the place was like half empty at kickoff, but then by the time the second quarter started, full sellout. But yeah, I mean, quite the season when you lose to Northern Illinois in week 2. I mean, any other year, and even this year, everyone thought, well, it's over, they're done. What do? They win 11 straight games to finish it out, blowing out a lot of teams. And it was nice, though, as a fan, too, even though they came up short against Ohio State. It bothered me in the moment, of course, because that second quarter, they just could not stop them. And, they finally, it seemed, all those injuries caught up with them, not having Riley Mills on the defensive line there. And, Morrison was out most of the season, but, you wish you could have seen those two somehow have been in there against Ohio State. But you do feel like, some of the jabs you had to deal with for years as a Notre Dame fan, you can kind of put aside a little bit because, after all, they did go and beat the SEC champion Georgia in New Orleans, and then they beat Penn State too. And frankly, Penn State probably should have won that game, but they didn't, and that's why you play the games, and that's why you can't turn the ball over. And then they, beat Penn State in the Orange Bowl to get in. So it had been 30 years since Notre Dame had won a major bowl game. And, granted, I know it's not the same system now, but they won 2. They won 2 this past year. So at least that's off the backs a little bit. But of course, anytime you get that close, though, you're just like, well, when are we going to get that chance again? I don't know. It seems like it's a whole different era with this NIL. There's going to be no more the SEC hoarding players 4 deep. If they're 4 deep, the other 3 guys can be like, I'm out of here. I'm going to go play somewhere. To get back on to the points that you guys were discussing, I think Andy's exactly right that we need to give this 3 to 5 years before we take any big takeaways from games being uncompetitive, whether or not buys are actually a negative as opposed to a positive. I will say this, though. If you look at how college football is now structured with essentially 2 mega conferences, the Big Ten and the SEC, you can't have that set up and then say that the 4 of the conference champions are going to get the top 4 seeds. That's going to lead to screwy results where you have teams as either the number 3 seed or maybe the number 4 seed where they're not quite up to snuff as a couple teams that aren't getting buys. That's really what we saw this year with like John said, Arizona State, they were hot. They made a good account for themselves. But like when we saw those brackets come out, I mean, did anyone not think that Penn State was just going to march through those first 2 games, playing SMU at home and then going in to play Boise State, which got their whole ranking off of a game where Oregon probably half slept through it anyway. So you can't build these super conferences and then penalize. I know they don't want to thumb their nose at the ACC or the Big 12 necessarily by doing that, and they definitely shouldn't do this guaranteed 4 slots thing. That's for the SEC and the Big 10. That's not right either. But I would say that. So how do it works now that 5 conference champions automatically get in, and that the four get top four seeds. Just say the top five conference champions are guaranteed slots in the playoff, and then let's go from there.
Yeah, I love
That's
that.
the more equitable way to do it. I think that's the quick fix.
Yep.
And we'll see. Unfortunately, with things like this, what we consider sensible as fans, it's not the only factor that these groups are considering when they come up with these ideas. Unfortunately, it's really the way of the world these days, more so than ever.
Right. And it's true. I mean, it took them this long to get the playoff, right? It's like it took them until 2024 to get a playoff. Like, this is something they could have really done a lot earlier. So that just proves your point, Mike. But I think your idea is a really solid idea because, when you looked into, for example, like Boise State as an example, like nobody thought Boise State was going to win that game, right? Like nobody really felt like there's going to be a legitimate upset there between them and I think it was Penn State at the time. So I think that your idea is a pretty solid one. And maybe just speaking on the improvement scenario, back to John, like anything else you would like to add as far as the potential tweaks to the system?
No, I think the ones that I mentioned, I agree with what Mike's suggestion is, just have the 5 conference champions, you're guaranteed, and then just give the 4 buys to the best 4 teams. Like, why do you have to be a conference champion to get a bye? The NFL playoffs doesn't give you a bye just because you won your division. I mean, your division could be the NFC South, and you could be 7-10. Like, it doesn't, doesn't guarantee you anything more than you have a chance to be in. So, I think that's just the one change that can be made. And I think that will lead to some more competitive games, especially in the first round. And if they're going to expand, I think like the teams like 1 through 8 are going to want a home game after what they just saw. I think we talked about this before the season. Like, they're not going to want their first game to be at a bowl site. They're going to want to have a home game, for all that extra revenue on campus and just for like the rest factor too, and not be rusty for that first game. So I think those are 2 potential changes to make.
I love this idea too, because I think even though you might think, well, but isn't there less cachet just playing a game in your regular stadium? But actually, I think it works out for the teams to have that game at home. I mean, we saw with Notre Dame, they look great in their first game against Indiana. So like, I think I'm all about that idea too, John. So all in all, I mean, it's set up to be a really good system for years to come. And I think these 2 adjustments could definitely make that happen. I mean, let me just give that to Andy for any other thoughts on the playoff, and then we'll carry on.
Yeah, to everyone's points, I think they got to tweak it a little bit. I read that they might consider military school like Army, Navy, and Air Force to get an extra game scheduled if they're in contention to be a playoff team, or just because the way, or I think it's just Army, Navy, because they always play that game in the middle of December, and that, based on that logic, that game kind of eliminates, like that game doesn't get thrown into consideration in the playoff. So they would have them schedule like another game. And you guys are already playing 12 games. That's plenty. Maybe, and then they might be playing in the American Conference title game too. Like, we don't need more games. Like, the 12-game schedule, keep it the 12-game schedule and figure it out some other way. And also, Army and Navy being playoff contenders, like, that's the fact that both of them were like pseudo contenders for maybe a minute this year was an outlier. Maybe one every 5 years, but the fact that both of them were flirting, and I think both of them got killed by Notre Dame. So see ya. But I think the future is bright. I guess if I had to be like a old man yelling at sky, it's good and bad that it stretches out, but like the title game being played on January 9th or 16th or whatever it was, like, Monday is not a natural rhythm for college football. It never has been. But for college sports, Monday is always the title game. It's the title game in the basketball. It's a title game in football. But to borrow, like, Mad Dog's point, and he nailed it, was like everyone's digesting Baltimore and Buffalo. And now you're going to try to get them to casually tune in to Notre Dame the Notre Dame Ohio State game, that's a tough ask. But I don't know where else you're going to put it in the calendar. And
Right.
but I do love the playoff system. It really the season, we know it goes by so fast, but it just adds another dimension. Thanksgiving ends and you get that next, you reset briefly, and then it starts all over again with like the bowl games, with your Conference USA and the Sun Belt, and then you get that first round of uh, games on campus. It really makes for a great holiday season, and I think it can't get worse. I mean, this was the first time they did it, and everyone's gonna complain and be critical, and there's always things to improve upon. But if the powers that be can take the criticism constructively and improve the product, it's better. I don't want them, but who am I? Who are we? Like 12, keep it at 12, because if you move it to 16, you already got people complaining 13 through 16, right? Now, if you move it to 16, you're gonna get the 17th team feeling butthurt. Keep it at 12. Don't ensure or guarantee like seeds. Let it play out. And we'll see what happens in 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, definitely good things to look forward to as we go. And honestly, I mean, even with the super conferences being so strange, like it's still going to take another year at least for me to get used to teams like USC and UCLA and Oregon in the Big Ten. But it's good football. I mean, it's good basketball too. Actually, like the conference scenario actually works really well in basketball. Like I'm loving Big Ten basketball right now. It's very, very good. SEC too. Like it's been really fun to watch. But I guess, does anybody want to come? Do you want to do any quick hitters in bowl season? Like how'd y'all do? Like did y'all do all right with the scenarios? Anyone? Okay, we can move on. That's cool. But I mean that was kind of it for me too. So what do we want to get into the NFL? Does anyone want to touch on that? I'm gonna go to John on that first to start us off. Like just the general NFL season recap. I mean, it was kind of the Chiefs season for a long time until it wasn't. You got to give it to the Eagles though. I mean, it was a really, really complete team. Definitely wild in the way it happened, but I don't think them losing the game was really necessarily the biggest surprise in the end. You just kind of felt like you were going to get it anyway because of the officiating. But John, I know there's a lot to unpack here with the NFL season, but I'll give it to you for thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just talking the Super Bowl, obviously not surprised the Chiefs lost. It's just the way that it happened. It was very similar to the Super Bowl where Mahomes lost to Tampa Bay, that they just couldn't block their defensive line the entire game, and that's exactly what happened here with Philly. Like every time he dropped back to pass, like there was 2, 3, linemen on him, and they didn't even blitz the entire game, which is even the most insane part. But the Chiefs were kind of playing with fire all year. I mean, how many of their wins were by a field goal or by under 7? Like the best bet in sports is like the Chiefs over a field goal. Pick the underdog to cover because they just don't cover the big spreads. Now they started to do it a little bit at the end of the year, like that Christmas game against Pittsburgh. Regret taking the Steelers with that scenario. But just in general, the Chiefs weren't. They were winning games because of Mahomes and just how clutch they are in the moment. But when they finally faced a team that could kind of expose those flaws, on their offensive line and then just, be able to match up against their cornerbacks and get some passes on the field, it was a tough situation for them. So, what it means going forward, I don't know. We'll see what the offseason brings in terms of free agency and the draft and all that stuff. But the Eagles certainly were a deserving champion. It certainly helped them that they had those 3 games at home in the playoffs too. Like the Lions losing to Washington, that was probably the most surprising result of the playoffs. Like, I think we all had the Lions. Commanders maybe covered the spread, but the way they won that game was just very, very shocking, and just how dominant they were, and just the Lions just turning the ball over basically every other possession. So, the Eagles definitely benefited from that in the end, but they certainly deserved to win. It was a rare Super Bowl in the last few years that was just a complete blowout. It was at 34-0 towards the end of the third quarter, and I'm still mad because I had 4-0 on the squares the end of the third quarter, and
Oh,
the Chiefs,
you got burned
get
by
that
that too?
bullshit touchdown.
Oh, I know.
Yep, I had 4-0.
Oh,
4-0 for the third quarter. And I was so happy because the Eagles, they scored that long touchdown. It's 2 minutes left. You're like, okay, this is good. This is good. And then the first play to Worthy, it's like a chunk play for 40 yards.
I feel your pain so
But
much
I
in
call
that.
it Kansas.
It's I guess. And it didn't, and that touchdown amounted to nothing too. That's what was so annoying about it. It didn't matter. It didn't even matter. I'm so sorry about that, John. I did have a really quick follow-up question before I go to Mike. When the Lions got humiliated by the Commanders in the divisional round, what was your feel about them being able to beat the Eagles? Because for me, I was like, that was their game. Like, I feel like they would have had nothing left for that Eagle game, and I felt that the whole week. Did you feel similar?
Yeah, no, I mistakenly believed that Washington could keep it close.
Okay.
I just thought it was just the division rivalry scenario, and that you're playing for a trip to go to the Super Bowl. Like, you're not going to have a letdown, but their run defense was just so bad. Like Barkley and Hurts, they just ran right through them.
Yeah.
And I don't think Daniels and their offense was that bad. They had some inopportune turnovers, and then they just couldn't stop their running game. Then just kind of got out of hand in the second half.
Yeah.
So, just kind of snowballed there.
I mean, it was a great year for the Commanders, like a huge year. It's probably one of the best years they've had in like 3 decades, honestly. Like, it was a really good year for those guys. So, like, all right, let's go to Mike. Any thoughts? Any quick hitters in the NFL?
Tough season of stomach.
Fair.
That would be that would be my overarching theme. As a Giant, the Giants are they're unwatchable. They're unwatchable. It's just. Listen, you can make the argument of whether I should care or not about the team's star running back leaving, joining a rival, and winning a championship. Now, whether or not it made sense for the Giants to pay him, which I admit it doesn't, it's tough to take. It really is tough to take. Now, I know that, the Giants 08 Super Bowl was a little bit before I got hooked up with you guys here, but in the general time frame of that we've known each other, I've seen 2 Super Bowls. So I can't cry that much about this, but I mean, it just feels like this franchise is just stuck in the mud and there's no getting out of it, and it's just led at the top by an incompetent owner who it seems that now he can't just default and fall back on some guy that had some connection to Bill Parcells to run things, that he doesn't know what to do. So on the positive side of things, though, I did have a feeling that the Eagles were going to win the Super Bowl going away. So what I did is I did one of those alternate line bets. I moved the spread. I thought about doing it Eagles minus 9.5, but I chickened out. I moved it to Eagles minus 6.5, put a few units on it, and had myself a nice little payday. Not 1980s Titan on Wall Street, Lake House in Wisconsin payday, but a nice little payday. And treat myself to something.
Wow.
So that was a positive. The other thing, too, was I was pulling for the Bills because one of my close friends, he moved up to upstate New York. He's from Syracuse originally. He moved up to Rochester. And for some reason, since he moved up there, he has just decided to, like, the Bills have become like his. If I were him, they're like his version of the New York Rangers to me. He just cannot stand that team. But I get on him because I'm like, listen, if you had a team that you really rooted for, I would be totally okay with you rooting against the Bills, but you don't root for anyone. If you root for just a team to lose, you don't root for anyone to win. You have a 31 out of 32 chance of that happening, assuming all things are even. So I've been sort of on the Bills bandwagon to really troll him pretty good. It was fun after the Baltimore game because the Bills should not have beaten Baltimore, but came up short against the Chiefs. You do wonder with the Bills if their window's going to close, but with Allen, you almost feel like if you have competent management around him, you could put pieces together fairly quickly and have a team that can win it if the things break right. So they'll still be a fun team to watch. The reason I thought the Eagles were going to win going away was, John alluded to this earlier, the Chiefs were winning so many games just by the skin of their teeth. and how they went 15 or 16-1 doing that, it was kind of hard to believe. I think if the Ravens had gotten by the Bills, they would have taken care of the Chiefs pretty good. I just thought the Chiefs were due to get themselves in a hole, like a big one that they were just going to be, snuffed out from. And that's what happened here. Listen, give credit to the Eagles, give credit to Nick Sirianni. I hate to say it. Whatever happened last year, it was very strange how the season just went. They looked very good early on. The season went off the rails, and whatever was going on there, adding Saquon Barkley, they were able to smooth out. And listen, they were helped out a bit by being able to play through a pretty weak NFC, especially with the Lions laying an egg against the Commanders. But hey, you get breaks and then you take advantage of them. They took advantage of them and they won those last two games very convincingly. And I guess to circle back to another point that we had, this is why you can't overreact to 1 year. Should we get rid of the whole system that we have for the NFL playoffs just because the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl were uncompetitive? No. Some years it'll be great. So just all in all, a tough year for me personally to stomach with the NFL. It was when you're at the bottom and seeing a rival and they take your team's star player go all the way to the top. That's a rough one.
Yeah, I hear you, Mike. But great job out of you with that bet, though. I mean, if that would certainly help you ease the pain a little bit. So that's a great call. Let's head over to Andy. Let's get your thoughts on the NFL this season.
Yeah, in terms of the playoffs, it was a fun ride. I was hitching. I was whatever you want to call it, tailed the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I cannot objectively root for the Eagles. I think Sirianni's an absolute scumbag. I hate Philadelphia. I hate Philadelphia sports fans. They're just like Sirianni and the Philly sports fan. They're just like the equivalent of, I don't know, you ever take a wet paper towel to a dusty TV set and then look at the paper towel like that? That's them in human form. But the thing with the Eagles, if I try to break it down objectively, and I will right here, as John mentioned, the Chiefs had flown close to the sun all year long, whether it's barely beating the Bengals, whether it's beating the Chargers on a field goal that goes doink off the upright, whether it's it might have been the Browns, I don't know, they win, or the Broncos, they lose they win because they block a field goal. So they're winning all these games by they hear their chinny chin chin. And you're like, one of these days they're going to be on the short end of the stick. But on the other side, it's like, well, you play that officiating game, and why is that not a first down for Josh Allen? That actually was a first down on third down, arguably, if you all know what I'm talking about in the conference championship game.
Oh man, that call.
Yeah. So it's like, well, you can't breathe on Mahomes. I'm still bitter about the game against the Texans. I had the Texans +8 or whatever it was, but freaking Houston special teams, bad job by them. And CJ Stroud wishes he could have anyway, we're digressing, but I was on the Chiefs. I wanted to see a three-peat. I did not like the Eagles. Now, tracking the NFC, John can speak to this. Jordan Love arguably probably had his worst game, throwing those 3 interceptions against the Eagles. I thought that game would be close because they played close week 1 in Brazil. The snow game, I feel like the Rams got the worst of it. They had the ball when the snow was at its worst, and that awful fumble at the worst possible time. At least they got that backdoor cover. But the Rams could have plucked the Eagles. And as bad as the final score it was with the Commanders, the Washington was in position down 8 with about 3 minutes left in the first half to get some points and start the second half with the ball. But they turned the ball over. I think they just turned the ball over again. I mean, they could not stop turning the ball over. And then who was their was it Lattimore? Lattimore had a terrible. They just did not have a good game. And Eckler fumbled the ball all the time. They picked their worst time to turn into a pumpkin. But the window, I'm kind of nervous about Washington next year. They got all the potential, but they're gonna have so much hype. Similar to the Texans of this year, there's a lot of hype with the Texans this year, and I don't know if they lived up to it or lived down to it. I mean, they still got in the playoffs, but I think it's going to be tough for the Commanders to live up to their expectations. There's going to be through the roof. I mean, you expect Philadelphia to be just as good. You don't expect the Giants might stink, but they're not. I don't think they're going to be as stinky stink as they were last year. And the media is going to pump up the Cowboys again. So that NFC East, we love to mock it, but it's going to be a tough division again. So, yeah, but the Commanders they definitely. I always say it as a joke. They were a year ahead of being a year ahead last year, and we all like to make fun of Dan Quinn, but that franchise totally transformed itself with that with the Daniels pick, and they definitely need to shore up their defense because they're not going to win every game 42-35. But they got some weapons offensively. So good fun season. It's a shame. We would like to see the Bengals in the playoffs because they're fun to watch instead of the Broncos, in my opinion. But it's sports, right? So no playoff team is just like allowed to be in just because they're more fun to watch than a team that maybe not be as sexy as like a Burrow Chase team. But it was a good fun season. Goodell's probably going to ruin it somehow. I get Netflix is going to try to bid on the really good games supposedly and maybe squeeze CBS and Fox out because Goodell only cares about profit. He doesn't care about quality per se, but we shall see. We're slaves to the game. So we're going to watch no matter what, even if we know the product's kind of been compromised over the years. We'll still be on the couch on Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays.
I think they're going to add a Wednesday night football, and then they're expand the season to like 20 games in the next 10 years.
Yeah, 18 games it's coming. Coming.
I'm sure of it. And it sucks. The players clearly have expressed not wanting it, but nobody thinks that they're going to be stopped from doing this because in the end of the day, the owners are going to make the decisions, and there's not much anybody can really do about it. I'm with you, Mandy. Let me think. Okay, so the Mike Tomlin era for the Steelers, I mean, I'm just gonna say it, like this is a tough year for the Steelers. Like they looked completely dead at the end of the year. How much of that can you really blame on Tomlin though? Like it's a very incomplete team. Nobody thought that team was gonna win games consistently with freaking Russell Wilson playing quarterback. Like it just was not set up for success at all. So all these rumblings that he's going to be run out of town or whatever, if Steeler fans are thinking that, shame on them. It's just dumb. I don't know what to say to that. But the question remains, I guess, like, do you think that he's kind of losing his luster with the Steelers? I mean, I don't know. I think it's just he can be as good as the team can be around him. And he's done a pretty remarkable job for teams that really weren't that good. So I don't really know what to think at this point. I mean, let's go back to John for a second. Like, where would you put Mike Tomlin's career today after nearly 2 decades? Maybe, is it 2 decades? Yeah, it's like 2 decades with the team.
I mean, he's never had a losing season.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's a good and a bad thing because you expect him to kind of pull out miracles with kind of a, shit kind of team. And like as gamblers, we think, oh, Tomlin getting 9 points. Like, oh, what a steal. And then they just completely lay turds against the Ravens 2 times. Although I was smart enough in the playoff game to be like, all right, we already saw this a few weeks ago. This isn't going to go a different way here. But on paper heading into the year, like no one really thought the Steelers were going to do much of anything. Again, like maybe a 500 team, and they kind of overachieved to start the year. I don't know if he regretted making the switch from Fields to Wilson. I don't know if that would have had any impact if you had more of a running threat with the offense, from the quarterback position. But he made the decision, and they just, like you said, they just completely cratered towards the end of the year. Where they go from here, Dave? Is Aaron Rodgers is that on your radar?
I don't even. I said this already to like multiple people. If Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback of the Steelers next year, I'm just gonna take a break from the team. I'm just gonna be a fan of somebody else for that year. I can't. It was hard enough with Russell Wilson, but dealing with Aaron Rodgers' his wacko mind, like I'm done. I can't. That's too much. Like John, when he was with the Packers, he wasn't quite as much of a wacko, but he was also a really good quarterback at the time, right? And now,
he after COVID, he really became a wacko.
Right.
Packers got rid of him at the exact perfect time, because it was the right moment. And Jordan Love still has a way to go. He mentioned earlier about the Eagles. I didn't even mention the playoff game against Green Bay, which I think Packers played their the best defensive game out of any of the playoff teams against the Eagles. The Eagles really couldn't do much of anything. So if not for some Green Bay injuries, some turnovers, the first play of the game, the fucking fumble on the kickoff that they give to the Eagles, and when it's literally laying in a lap of a Packers player, like if that's not overturned, I mean, who knows what happens? But in any event, they moved on from Rodgers at the perfect time. I mean, he had good stats at the end of the year for the Jets, but he was clearly just like a locker room cancer. I wouldn't want him on my team. I'm hoping he goes to the Vikings. So complete like the Favre trilogy 15 years later. Be pretty hilarious.
Yeah, no, that would him going to the Vikings would be wild because it would be such a parallel to Brett Favre's career. I imagine you were thinking that too. Yeah, it'd be something, that's for sure. But see, that's the thing. If he was still a really good quarterback, like you definitely would take a chance with somebody like Rodgers. Like even today, Rodgers, if he was still pretty good, but he's clearly not. Like he's definitely lost a lot of his fastball. So it's definitely a different scenario. Andy, I guess I'll give it to you on this question, or maybe I'll give it to Mike first. Mike, as far as Rodgers, where would you see him playing next year? Like, could it be my Steelers? Could it be somewhere else? Like, what do you think?
Well, if the Department of Health and Human Services is going to put out a football team, he'll probably be their quarterback because he'll probably be some sort of deputy administrator or secretary for them. I'm not even kidding. If there's a way to put a bet on that, I will lay down several units right now that he joins the administration in like under RFK Jr. I'm not even kidding. I mean, it basically we don't need to get into that, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit. I don't think he is good enough now that anyone is going to want to put up with this. If he joins a team, he's probably going to condition it on it. I can go on Pat McAfee and just drone on and on about whatever the hell I want. And if no one's willing to give him that, and listen, even if the teams, I have a feeling like there's probably a good amount of ownership and management that probably don't think his views are all that wacky, but they probably just don't want him speaking so much out of turn and drawing the attention in. So forget what you think about what he has to say. It's more that he's just drawing attention, that he wants to bring in his own players, that he saddled the Jets with Hackett, who is incompetent. It's very clear that if he's going to play now, he wants there to be certain conditions attached to it, like he's a prime level Brady, or even a past his prime level Brady, or just a guy who is at the top of his game. And yeah, even though he finished with good stats, I feel like that was very misleading. That when the Jets still had a season, that he didn't do anything, and once it slipped away, he put up some garbage time numbers. But who cares? It's 2025. Everyone puts up numbers in the NFL. So realistically, I don't think he's going to be playing anywhere. He's going to be, what was he, 41 this year? He'll be 42. coming off a very mediocre to poor season after an Achilles injury with no mobility. What's the point? Like, what team? Where is he going to put a team over the top? Is he going to be better than Sam Darnold? Probably not. So I just don't see what the point would be with all the baggage that's going to come with him.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I think, I think the when you have that together, like he's washed up and he's just too much of a distraction behind the scenes. Like it's just it's bad energy. Let's go to Andy. Where do you think he would go, or do you think he'll go on an NFL team? He might be on a team, as Mike alluded to, but I don't know if it's going to be an NFL team. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, I think he gives it one last go. I mean, he has a little bit of an ego, and he was an all-time great for a long time. But to Mike's point, John's point, the scrambling ability isn't there anymore. He's not a statue, but he's not the same guy that is able to extend the play, move out of the pocket, and throw a BB. He's not as accurate. He's still very accurate. He's got to probably go somewhere warm, towards the end of the year. Oh, Big Whoop, he played good in Jacksonville and Miami when the season was out of reach. And yeah, he's got to, you're going to have to deal with all that extracurricular stuff, whether or not you agree with him. And I happen to do. I'm all on RFK. I'm just kidding. But, and Elon. But anyway, the thing with the NFL, like, I think I read somewhere that maybe Tennessee might be interested because they know they fucked up with the Will Levis. Anyone that watched college football knew Will Levis was a disaster.
Yep.
And maybe Anthony Richardson too, but we'll see. I didn't think either of those quarterbacks were good when they were playing at Florida and Kentucky respectively. But if you're a team that's constantly, 3-14, 5-12, 4-13, and maybe Aaron Rodgers can get you to 9-8, 10-7. Do you make that move? I don't know. Do you just for that? A couple levels up from the muck. I don't think he's gonna be the difference for. You're not gonna turn. You're not gonna take a team that's like on the fringe of a playoff run to winning it all. He's 5 years ago maybe, but not now. I mean, I think that's who the Jets thought they were getting 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. The quarterback that can get them to that next level, but. They were proved wrong. The injury probably contributed to that as well. And
yeah.
there's only one Tom Brady that's been able to kind of have that longevity into their 40s, but that guy was a robot. He didn't put anything in his body that was like bad for you, and he had a work ethic that like 99.5% of everyone else does not have. So all this to say, yeah, I don't think Rodgers is no longer Rodgers, and any team that thinks he's going to be Rodgers is just looking at the game with Google eyes.
Yeah. I mean, it's time comes for everybody in the NFL eventually, and so we saw Mortal Favre at the end of his career. Same for Brady, and Rodgers is no different. And I think we're going to see it for more people as we go along too. And kind of seeing with Russ too. That's already come for Russell Wilson as well. Like we'll see everybody kind of get older. It's interesting with the Chiefs because they are also starting to get into that second or maybe even that third gear of their respective careers. Specifically, Kelsey. Kelsey has looked very. Is it just me, but he looked kind of ordinary in the playoffs? He was not Kelsey. Kelsey was not Kelsey. But yeah, there you go. I mean, it's an interesting scenario. Let's go back and I think that we'll just close out with some golf stuff because I mean we've done golf for so many years, and I feel like it would be an appropriate time to just kind of look ahead and like what you're seeing. Who are the players? Who would be the players to watch in golf in 2025? We had Scheffler doing his thing a lot last year. we had some notable events. Obviously, we covered all the majors, but let's go back to Mike. I mean, where do you see? Who are the players to watch? What are the moments to watch this year for pro golf, either live or the PGA and everything in between, all the majors, all the scenarios?
Well, before I get into specific players, and I don't think the landscape has changed that much regarding specific players to watch from last year into this year, because Oberg was a player last year.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing to watch right now is what is going to happen with the PGA Tour and Live negotiations. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, we have to bring in a hot button political leader into this when we talk about it, but why does the PGA Tour think that Donald Trump is going to help them out at all in these negotiations? So I guess just to frame this a little bit, is that Tiger Woods said there could be a deal very, very soon. Monahan and Adam Scott were in meetings with the Saudis, and apparently Trump is trying to help negotiate a deal. But here's what you have to remember about that. Trump is like forget his politics. I think anyone would agree that he's rather vindictive, looks for revenge, and doesn't ever forget who has either wronged him, whether or not they actually did, or he perceives that they did. He bought Doral. He spent millions of dollars renovating the Blue Monster course there. And what happened? The PGA Tour took away the World Golf Championship from that course as he got into politics and moved it to Mexico, of all places. Do you not think that he's been waiting for years to stick it to them for doing that? Of course he has. And I know that the PGA of America and the PGA Tour is not the same thing. I don't know if Trump quite understands that, and forget the distinction.
Mike, if I can step in, yeah. I guarantee you he doesn't understand that, because he didn't know the difference between a water main from Northern California and Southern California. If you can't figure that out, I can't imagine he would know this.
But whether or not he does or not, the PGA Championship still counts as a PGA Tour event, and they took that away from one of his courses. He's not going to be a friend to the PGA Tour. Why do they think he is? Right. It makes absolutely no sense. So I don't know what the solution is ultimately going to be to this. I saw, so you read different things every day. I saw something here where what they want to sort of do is let like the big name live players will just concede to it and be like, hey, all right, you guys can come back, whatever, no strings attached. That basically the people that were like the Lee Westwoods, the Martin Keimers, the Henrik Stensons of the world, that it's basically Graham McDowell, happy trails, have a nice life. You can never play here again. We don't care. You're not worth anything. And that younger players, they'll sort of, they'll have to earn their way back. Who knows what any of that means? I don't really know what's going to happen here. I've said from the beginning that this is so hard to evaluate because because it's run by a government organization, they can afford to take on massive losses, and they can sink a lot of money into this, and their goals may not be purely financial. Mm-hmm. If their goals were purely financial, I think Live would probably be finished for now, or that a merger definitely would have happened once they took away enough star power to the PGA Tour. If they could eat the short-term losses, they would have then quickly made a deal, because they can't run forever paying these guys, getting 25,000 people watching and then only 250,000 people watching an event in Australia, which honestly is a good event. So I don't know. That's the big thing here, is that Live can last for a while because it's backed by oil money and the goal is not pure profit, or maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But point is, they can afford to lose money for a very long time in order to leverage their position as good as they can get it. And with the PGA Tour, listen, they were able to open themselves up, get some investors in, so they're not in as good a position to do that, but they're in a better position than they were beforehand. I really don't know what's going to happen with this. I have no idea why Monahan is still leading anything. I think if you wanted to you wanted to give an example of so many things that are wrong in this world. I'm telling you, you could go into any top 100 law firm in this country and pick multiple people out of there that could do that job a lot better than Jay Monahan. Why we just allow these incompetent people to be CEOs for so long and just raking in eight figures every year when just what do they actually do?
Yeah.
What has Monahan done to warrant continuing on in his role? I mean, he clearly underestimated the threat early on, and he hasn't been able to close a deal since. So, and now he thinks that the president, who they took a tournament away from, is going to help them out. So, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I guess the only thing I can toot my own horn about is I did very early on say when they talked about the merger, and then I read the details. I was like, wait a minute, that's not a merger. They just agreed to continue negotiating. So,
Yeah.
Regarding players to watch, I'll just quickly go through it. I think these are your big storylines. How does Scheffler continue this incredible run of form that he's had the last 2 years, and can he take that run of form and turn it into a 2 or 3 major season? That he has not been able to do, despite putting up absurd strokes gain numbers, absurd consistency, having a huge lead in both the official world golf rankings and in data golf rankings, which will include Live People for Form. There's always, can Rory win the Grand Slam? Can Rory win another major? We'll see. Probably not. There's just too much scar tissue there, but I don't know. Who knows? He won Pebble Beach, and Pebble Beach is, of course, it takes out a lot of what he is able to do well, and he was able to win there. So who knows? What does Oberg turn out to be? It seems like he has all the talent in the world. This guy just stepped in from Texas Tech, having never played a major before, and he just immediately became one of the top players in the world. Won the relocated Genesis last week at Torrey Pines in impressive fashion. So we'll see. It seems like majors should be quickly on the horizon from him. Can Bryson DeChambeau continue? Can he stay healthy long enough? Can he maintain a good run of form to win? That's something to look at. Excuse me. Can Brooks Koepka get a sixth major, or is he going to sort of slide away again? I don't know. We shall see. And Xander Schauffele, who I feel like that has to be the quietest 2 major season that we can remember, just because there was another player that looked like so clearly week in, week out better than him. But Schauffele won 2 majors last year after being in that category of, well, best players who haven't won a major yet. So he's injured right now. I forgot exactly what's wrong with him. I'm sure one of you guys knows. And we'll see how he follows up this year. We're sort of just waiting for this other shoe to drop with Liv, and we don't know when that's going to happen. So we'll just keep our eyes open for that. To make this all about me for a second, in a twist this year, I am actually going to be in Hilton Head for the final round of the RBC Heritage on Easter Sunday. So I will be attending that for the first time in my life. I looked into playing Harbor Town that week, and I think because it's going to be closed for the next year, it's going to be open the week after the Heritage, they want $650 to play an 18-hole round there. And I played it last year for $350. I'm not paying $650 plus tax. I can play the Ocean Course at Kiawah Island for the same amount. It's going to require me to do a whole day trip up to the Charleston area, but I may have to do that, That should be fun. But I'm looking forward to having seen that tournament so many times on TV, to actually being there. And we have a Ryder Cup this year, which, the way that the winds of the world are blowing right now, that will probably have quite a bit of an extra juice than normal.
Yeah, that's a great summary. And that's awesome that you're going to get to go down to the RBC. That's great stuff. That's a beautiful, beautiful venue, I'm excited for you too, Mike. So let's go over to John. Let's get your look ahead of golf. There's so much to unpack. Mike broke down a lot of it greatly. Anything you want to add, John?
Yeah, he sure did. I don't think I could add another storyline to track here, but yeah, will Scheffler continue his dominance? I mean, he's already started off pretty well. It's like his first couple tournaments were warm-ups, and then he gets right in the mix again at Torrey this past weekend. Um, you know, he's had a few uncharacteristic mistakes so far this year, but I think it's just kind of healing off his injury and getting back to his previous form. But even at like I would say his B minus game, like still almost won this past weekend. And I would say the easiest bet in the world was this past Sunday, Scheffler over McIlroy in the final round. Together, you knew Scheffler was going to make a charge, and Rory is just. I know he won at Pebble Beach, but it feels like he has these random, like 1 or 2 weekends a year, he'll look like himself, and then the rest of the time he just completely folds on the weekends. And we saw that uh, at the U.S. Open last year. I know he didn't fold on the weekend, but he completely choked the tournament. Chronicled last summer to Bryson. So we'll see if he can get another major this year. I don't know if it'll happen. My vote would be no on that. I think there's just way too much has happened. He'll continue to win the Pebble Beaches of the world. Although I will say his favorite course, Quail Hollow, is hosting the PGA Championship this year, and he's won that tournament so many times. So if there was ever a major that he might win again, it could be this year at PGA Championship.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, the young up and coming guys, Oberg, me and Andy hit on the outright bet the other day with him
Nice.
to win the Genesis. So that was nice to be there for his first big win. Yeah, he's got just all the talent in the world, and I think his short game could get a little better, but I think he'll work on that, and he'll become even more dominant. Like he's got like McIlroy's skills off. I think his approach, his play is better at this point, and he's just so calm and collected. Like nothing seems to rattle this guy out in the course. He's going to be just a huge star in the future. Yeah, Schauffele, I think he got hurt actually on TGL the first night that they played, and
That's crazy.
Since, of all things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to say he'll probably come back for the next signature events, which are in Florida in a couple of weeks. We have Bay Hill and then the Players, but yeah, and then we'll see what other guys can kind of rise to glory and kind of take that next step and contend in majors this year. Whether that be the Patrick Cantlays of the world and those kind of players who have never won majors before, and see if they can step up and take it to the next level. Yeah, I saw that Live, like their first broadcast on Fox had 12,000 viewers on Fox Sports 2.
That's great.
Which is just it's sad. And I guess they were doing like, I tried to watch the final round on Saturday night a little bit. And that course is pretty cool, the one in Australia, and they're trying to mimic like the Phoenix hole with the watering hole, and Patrick Reed made a hole in one, and they're just throwing all kinds of beer at him. It was kind of cool, but it's just the whole production of it. And I guess they were doing tape delay for people not on the East Coast. So like, I don't know if Andy experienced it, if you were trying to watch it and like you already knew what happened and they were trying to do tape delay. It's just just a bullshit product. And I don't even know if they're paying to be on Fox or Fox is paying them, but it's not really going to help because, the whole league, like no one's tuning in to like watch just Bryson DeChambeau. It's like, it's just, I don't know. I feel like they're rowing up without a paddle at this point, and like they're just going to wait it out until they can merge. Is my thing. They're going to keep pumping money into it. We'll see if our dear leader can make a deal. But I tend to agree. Like, why would he help the PGA Tour at this point? Like, because he likes golf. Like, so what?
Yeah,
I don't know. That's to be determined. But yeah, tons of interesting storylines this year. Every week is just banger with golf. Even like shit weeks like this upcoming week, Mexico Open. Like, I'll be into it. It's a nice course, and there's bets to be made. Like, let's go. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like the segue into the season with the indoor league also helps too. So it's gonna be. It does look like it's set up to be a nice year. Let's go to Andy. Let's get anything you want to add as far as the year ahead for golf.
Yeah, I mean, a million storylines. Golf is such a fickle sport. Is Victor Hovland gonna regain his form? He's been he's tinkered, fire Joe Mayo, rehire Joe Mayo, I don't know, or whatever his first name is, but Hovland was a top 5 player in the world, and he kind of lost his way. The other guys have chronicled Rory. On paper his swing is beautiful, but he seems to just kind of fall short when the lights are the brightest. But he's got Quail Hollow, and the British Open, or the Open as we call it, is in Royal Portrush in Northern Ireland. So is that gonna boost his confidence, or is he gonna feel too much pressure because it's in his home country? He loves Royal Portrush, so all eyes are going to be on him. But remember, 2 years ago, he had the claret jug in his hand, and then Cam Smith made every putt known to man, and Rory burned every lip known to man on that Sunday. So he comes so close. But the storylines are going to take care of itself, and he's going to just be asked every time the week of the majors, like, is this the week? Is this the week? Is this the week? So we shall see. Yeah, Oberg is fun to watch. He's no nonsense. He's like the anti-Jordan Spieth. He doesn't react one way or the other, where Spieth reacts to every shot one way or the other. But he's fun to watch. I think he came in second place at Augusta last year with virtually no experience playing there. So he's going to be a top dog in 6 weeks' time. But yeah, the thing about these majors, there's only 4 a year. So there's a lot of good golfers, a lot of great golfers. And, when a guy like Xander wins 2, like last year, then there's only 2 up for grabs for everyone else. And you got to expect Scheffler's going to win 1 or 2 this year again. He's too good not to. I will not be crestfallen if Cantlay never wins a major. That guy's boring, but not even fun to watch. Aberg, like, they're both kind of emotionless, but at least Oberg's fun to watch, if that makes sense. Cantlay. If you ever watch golf on tape delay and you press the YouTube fast forward 15 seconds when Cantlay's putting, you can press it 3 times and he's still doing the thing with his feet. Like, it's obnoxious to watch Cantlay. And then with Liv, yeah, I mean, they're disrupting, and when Mike's like they're not in it to make a buck, it's probably right, because they're just, what's the saying? Chasing bad money after good, chasing good money. Anyway, I don't know what the saying is, but they're everything they do, whether it's like the Instagram post or the social media stuff, like, it reeks of desperation. Like, it's Taylor Gooch, it's Graham McDowell. Like, yo, no one gives a flying what about Taylor Gooch anymore. But there are guys that I love. Like, I love watching Hatton play. I like DeChambeau. I like Koepka, Jocko Neiman, Carlos Ortiz, a couple other guys like Tom McKibben. Everyone here knew Tom McKibben, and he chased the money. He had his tour. He earned his tour card the proper way, and he chased the money to go live and play in shorts and listen to Shaggy on the back nine. But, like, there's a lot of good players out there playing in obscurity. Whether or not they care, I have no idea. But at least we get to see them play on the majors on 4 times a year. And for the degenerates, we will turn on FS2. We're going to watch them play in Hong Kong, tape delay or not. Like, we're going to bet on it, but it's like, we're not, like, it's not the best quality product in the world. Like, there's some really, really good golfers on there, but it just has a weird feel.
Yeah.
But it's not going away. That's the thing. They're stubborn. They got a lot of money to burn. And like, when you guys mentioned the reunification situation, like, yeah, no, I forget who the writer was. He hates Norman. It's not Jeff Shackelford. It's the other guy, Alan Shipnuck, was like, no one's going to miss Bubba Watson. Like, that is true.
That is true.
Like, what are you going to do? Like Rahm took like $100 million. Like, and a lot of guys stayed on tour and turn down that, like, maybe not that large sum amount of money, but they turn down millions of dollars. And now you're going to have these guys potentially come back. You're going to have a lot of angry people. And then to tie it all, put in the bone, the Ryder Cup. Yeah, we can't wait for Ryder Cup. I don't know the last time a captain has won back to back. Like, usually they, you captain and then you might come back, maybe not back to back. But it's rare where Luke Donald, he won, and now they're having him run it back again on U.S. soil. And then I don't think it's going to happen, but there is that potential where Keegan Bradley could be a player / captain, but that's a lot of responsibility, and it would be interesting to see if that would pan out. But I doubt it will. He's got a lot of response. He doesn't want to pull a Zach Johnson. So, yeah, like, it's going to be a really good Ryder Cup. They'll definitely be juice. It's hard to root against either of those guys, but I'll be the contrarian and root for Europe 8 months down the road. Ban me.
No, I'm not gonna lie. I'm probably gonna be rooting for him too. Like, this bad American, I guess. But they're fun to watch. That's the thing. Like, it's a fun team too. So, like, there is that as well. So thank you, Andy. This has been great. It's been really awesome just getting to cover all the scenarios with you with golf over the years. And I just want to take a moment to thank you for all the moments. So many moments. Like, even we've had rants out of it. Were really fun, and a lot of great storylines we've covered, and just it makes me really grateful just to have you here, and we're gonna so it's fun getting your text too sometimes during events, so like it's a good time. So for the moment, let's go to final thoughts. Let's go to John first.
Yeah, Dave, I can't sum it up any better than, like, your opening monologue. It's been a long time that we've been kind of getting together and just bullshitting about sports, and thank you for the platform. And we'll all obviously stay in touch, and like I said, if I don't know if this end for sure, like, if you wanted to pop up a random show here and there, we'll be here. So
I love it.
Thank you again for just dealing with our rants and our our nonsense half the time, but it's much appreciated, and it's been a lot of fun.
Thank you, John. It's and the pleasure is mine too. I mean, it's been a vibe for sure. And I'm always going to leave the door open for that too. Like, I'm not stupid like Mike. I'm not like, this is the end. This is it. And then I come back. And it's just like Mike broke that down beautifully. But let's go to Mike for final thoughts.
Well, Dave, I just wanted to, again, thank you. I mean, your platform over the years, I think, facilitated so many laughs, a lot of great content. And I really think a big thing is if you listen to us talk about golf, especially a lot of the football shows that, John and Andy would sort of anchor, you really, I think you learn something.
Mm-hmm.
I think we took this we had fun, but we took it somewhat seriously. We didn't really go for like the hot take nonsense. So I think that's something, it's not the way that the world has gone, unfortunately.
Right.
But if you listen to this show 14 years ago, you might have had in the back of your head, hey, it's not a sure thing that Tiger Woods is going to win 25 majors. And here we are, 2025. He's at 15. He's not going to win another one.
Right.
But Dave, you facilitated so many of us getting to know each other more, putting faces behind the words, getting to know the person. So thank you for that too. Like I said, you were always the most gracious host. You never tried to make it about yourself either. I mean, this was your own platform. You basically just gave it to us to talk. So you really got to be you've always struck me as a very selfless person, and I think that really showed through here. And I guess if we want to tie it back to the beginning, I remember one of the very first things that I ranted about was Chris Berman and his obtuse presence on golf broadcasts. I'm happy to report that the USGA is now uploading not just final rounds, but like first and second rounds. So if you guys want to relive the Chris Berman golf experience, the 2011 US Open first and second rounds are up there for us to watch in perpetuity. And we can watch him compile scores of Spanish golfers and Swedish golfers, make comments like, it's Gary Rum and Coke because this is happy hour. We'll be back at 5. So, nostalgia makes it a little bit more palatable to watch. But yeah, just one of the things that sparked my ire when I first got on here is now back for me to experience again. So. And watch Rory. It's fucking incredible to watch him in those first 2 rounds in 2011, how he just can't miss an iron shot. Now he can't hit an iron shot. But
yeah.
Listen, thank you, Dave. Thank you, John. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm sure if something like huge happens in the sports world, I could see us reconvening.
Oh, yeah.
But, if this is it, I mean, maybe not, but if this is it, guys, it's been a great run. It's been my pleasure. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mike. It really means a lot what you mentioned earlier about the platform. Like, I appreciate you very much. And I don't remember how much I've articulated this, but my success now on Twitch is owed in a huge part to this show. I don't become as good a host as I am without getting to know you and having your ability, your trust in like my ability to run, and just having your companionship and friendship and your knowledge. Like I've always wanted from the beginning wanted to make you shine because you're the ones that I've always that have all the. I mean, I'm just pushing. I always feel like I'm pushing the buttons, but obviously there's more than that. But you all really know your stuff, and that's why I think this has been such a huge success for us and a great journey. And we keep getting feedback from all our friends about it too. So it's been wonderful to really give you all a voice because it's like the sports talk I've always wanted. And it's like Mike alluded to this too. Like it just doesn't exist anymore. And it's just I don't know if it really ever existed, to be honest with you. Like, and so like, I thank you very much for that. Like that means a lot. And we're going to continue the legacy of the show, in different ways in the Sandwich Show as well over on Twitch. And so I'm going to definitely reach out to you guys for that too. Like anytime you guys want to come on, just shoot the shit. We can do that on Twitch too. So like, I don't think it's our time talking is going to be completely over either. And then like you said, well, I'm glad. I mean, if there's something huge happens, if there's a reason to bring this thing back, we can definitely run it back. But let's go to Andy first for final thoughts on this podcast, and then we'll say goodnight for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, what everyone else is saying, I don't know I don't have it in front of me. I couldn't tell you the first year when we were doing shows about the college football and the NFL and the previews in August and like the Oscar stuff, and then I mean, there's been a whole cast of characters that have been in the fold. And yeah, Dave, you know how to run the show. You've got a pretty loose itinerary, and then it just kind of unfolds. I didn't when we used to do the football shows. We would take notes. We wouldn't know exactly what we were going to say, but we would try to have a couple talking points and have some box scores nearby, and you would always you'd have the NFL maps and like what are the games, like the games you're looking forward to. We do the college football, the bowls that you wouldn't watch in your backyard, all that good stuff. So, the show evolved over the years, but at the same time, like the structure was kind of constant, right?
Yeah.
So it's been a blast. The golf stuff, I always defer to the other two. And I don't know when y'all started doing the golf shows every major, but I just don't have that in front of me, and I don't have Rain Man memory. But those were always like John and Mike did their fucking research. Like
yeah
you actually did learn. You get educated on the golf stuff. whether it's like the layout of the course, like which players are suited for this course, which players aren't as worthy depending on the course, and stuff like that with the weather and the winds and the draws and the trends. So the golf stuff could get very, scientific. And then everything else in between, the March Madness stuff, which we're a few weeks away from. You had, baseball stuff with Captain and fucking Fiddle even. He knew his stuff.
Yep.
And he made sure you knew it. He knew it. But you had the baseball stuff. So no topic was considered taboo. So it was always a great time. Many shows. And yeah, hopefully there'll be some more down the road. But there's a lot of golf. We're getting a good time of the sports season. I'm not following Yankee camp day to day, but some people are. As for the Red Sox, I think we just want a healthy roster when the season actually starts. And Dave, your Dodger team,
I know,
probably doesn't have enough starting pitchers, but we shall see.
Yeah,
it'll be a fun baseball season. I guess Tampa, they're playing like a bunch of home games where the Yankees like have spring training, and I guess it gets really humid and hot down there, so they're going to hit a ton of home runs. But I don't know. We're looking forward to baseball, but we want to enjoy March Madness and the golf and then the winter playoff sports. I have not paid too much attention to the Four Nations tournament, but I'll try to watch tomorrow, that championship game.
Should be fun. Andy, thank you. And Mike and John, also thank you so much for all the good times and all the good and the great analysis over the years. Like this has been awesome. Have a good rest of your night, and sending you your best in all your scenarios too, like in life and in sports and everything else in between. So take care, y'all. Like it's been wonderful. Thank you. Take care, my friends.
Be well, guys.
Take care,
everyone. All right, see everyone. Take it easy.
Andy, John, and Mike. It was great to see everybody back again. That was awesome. What could you say? Like, you talk about just good friends. Like, we've known each other now for, like, at this point, maybe even like 19 years in some cases. I joined the whole universe of the Mike Francesa world back when it was just MikeFrancesa.com. December-ish, no, maybe not even, like very late December, like the last 2 weeks of December 2008. So this is how long ago we're talking about. So these are friends I've known for a really long time. So it just means so much to connect with them at least one more time. We might even have them back on like in another episode down the road, just fairly soon. But certainly they have been amazing to me. I really appreciate the kind words, and I appreciate your tuning in. And Chris was in the chat earlier tonight on YouTube, and I'm glad Chris was enjoying it too. We're gonna have Chris on the program as well. Just to run this down a little bit for everybody here listening on the pod, specifically if you're listening on the podcast platforms. Well, we're gonna keep coming at you with shows as we can get to them. I believe the next one is gonna be in a couple weeks when we have our good friend Kevin on the Cape back with us for what should be most emotional, most incredible random questions. He's so excited, but so am I. I'm really looking forward to that. I am hoping, and I didn't even tell them yet, but I will reach out to Ari and Jerry, aka Cap and Fiddle, or Fiddle and Cap, for just to come on, just to chat. But it'll probably be mostly baseball. We're hoping to get Parcells back. We're hoping to get, Umer might be a bit of a long shot at this point, but I'll reach out anyway to see what happens. We'll take it from there. But this has been the Sandwich Corner. Thank you for all the years. And we're going to keep this tour going for a few more weeks. And then right around April sometime, we'll say goodnight for good. For now. Never say never. I mean, the door will always be open to just, do a pop-up scenarios every now and again. And as I said earlier, like, we can have everybody back. You can always have people parachute in over on the Sandwich Show on Twitch too. So, but as far as this podcast goes, we are heading down the home stretch. Great run. Thank you so much for listening. If you missed any part of it, of course, you can catch our replays on YouTube. Look for Davey's Eating a Sandwich on YouTube to find the Sandwich Corner. It's a special playlist that has all of these shows. And then you can catch me the rest of the time on Twitch doing my normal thing, variety streaming, interviews, music, and so much more over on the Sandwich Show, game shows, everything. Like, we do a lot of fun things over there. Davey's Eating a Sandwich on Twitch. And then in between all of that, you can find me on Instagram, same handle. So good night for now. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.